Pam, and I'm back for another week of 10-minute tips for your relationships. 10 minutes. Now, this week I have something I think is so interesting that I want to talk about this week to you couples. Whew. Yes, this is something that I have learned about over the years of being married. And this year we are coming up on our 35th wedding anniversary. So trust me, I know a lot about this subject matter. So this week we are talking about, let me give you my title. Boom, 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 boom. How does my childhood affect our relationship? Whew. I'm sure you're sitting there saying, in a number of ways, and that's true. My childhood and my husband's childhood were two different childhoods. We grew up in two different homes. So guess what? When we showed up to our relationship, our marriage, but really first our relationship, there were so many things that were different about us that, we had some difficulty. And not so much that we had difficulty in knowing that we loved each other and we wanted to be with one another, but just some difficulty in really understanding each other from, the backgrounds that we came from. So let me say this. There's a quote that I want to read to you. And this quote is from a lady named Dodie Smith. And her quote says, "The family, that dear octopus from whose tentacles we never quite escape, nor in our innermost hearts ever quite wish to." And that is sometimes, that's very true. Now, some of us are like, I want to get away from my family. They're crazy. Oh, I can't wait to get away. But then there are some of us who are very attached to our families. We're attached to our families. And really, not only are we attached to our families, but we're kind of attached to the way our families did things and how we saw things. So let me just get started, okay? So we know that a family, we could just say, give an explanation of what a family is, but families are quite different in that families come in all characteristics. They have all different characteristics. They come in all different forms. And so, when we're thinking about getting into a relationship, we have to take that under consideration, that a family is just not like your family. Okay. And it's not just a group of people who live in the same house, right? Those folks can be just roommates. They don't necessarily have to be a family. Okay. So families come in all different forms, all different structures, they have different characteristics. So let me just say this, that families are very diverse. Yes, every family is not the same. No, not one. Not one family is exactly the same as another family. We all have our own set of rules and all of that. But like I said, our families come in different forms and they all have different characteristics. So our families have huge impacts on who we are as a person, who we become as an individual, what we expect out of life, and then how we show up in other relationships. Yes, our families, the diversity of different families and our families, our own set of unspoken and spoken rules, these have a huge impact on who we are as people, as individuals, as a person who wants to be in a relationship with another person. What do you expect? As a woman, what do I expect? As a man, what do certain men expect in families? Case point, I know in my husband's family, his mother was a stay-at-home mom, and she was able to be at home and be attentive to the things of the home. Doesn't mean that she didn't work, because I don't know, there's a segment of people out there who tend to think that stay-at-home moms are always sitting on the couch eating bonbons, watching soap operas. Look, I was a stay-at-home mom for like 5 years straight. In and out, I was stay-at-home mom with some of my other older kids, but with my last child, who is now 17, I stayed home with her for her first 5 years of life at home, okay? And I never sat on the couch, and I never ate bonbons, and I never watched soap operas. And if I did, okay, so what? However, stay-at-home moms are working moms too. They just work at home. And one thing I found that when I was a stay-at-home mom, that I probably worked more than I did when I was out on the job. Okay? So let me just put that little plug in there for stay-at-home moms. However, his mom was a stay-at-home mom, but my mother was a working mom. And not just that, we came from two different family styles. For one, my family was a blended family. My family was a blended family. I had a working mother, and I was the oldest child in the family. Now, my husband, on the other hand, he came from a very traditional family. He had a stay-at-home mom, like I said before, and he is the youngest child in his family. So these differences had a great impact on our relationship when we first got married. It was a trip. But let me just get back to what I was talking about, because I only have 10 minutes, right? I wanted to talk about how our differences have a huge impact on us as a couple, us as significant others, right? Because when we come in, like I said before, we come into relationships, or we know that we had spoken and unspoken rules in our family. So we bring that stuff to our relationships. Yes. So we bring expectations of the rules, expectations that we have for each other, our roles as a husband and a wife, the power structure or the hierarchy in the family. Some families are very much matriarchal, they're ran by the wife, the mother, the woman in the family, and then some families, the husband is the head of the household. Our styles of communication, your verbal and nonverbal ways of communicating, or lack thereof, the ways we're taught to show love and affection. Oh God, that's so important, and that's why it's so important for us as couples to know our mate's love language. A lot of that comes from their family structure, and what they were taught and what they were shown as a family. Our values, our priorities, what's important to the family, and then our methods of how we solve problems. All of that is huge, and all of that is very important. And yes, all of that does affect us in our relationships. One cute story before we go. So my husband and I first got married, setting up our little household, and I noticed that every time he took a shower, he got a fresh towel, like every time. And so I approached him and I said, hey, I noticed that, you get a new towel every single day. And he said, yeah, that's how we did it at our family. I said, well, that's not how we did it in our family. And he said, oh, well, that's nasty. Let me tell you, it was the first World War I of our relationship over a towel. Well, needless to say, we're here 35 years later, so we worked it out. But we had different expectations, and we brought that to our family, our own family. We brought what we expected, or what we were taught, or what we saw in our own families, to our own family. So look, it's important that we deal with our differences, talk about them, know and understand the different ways that we grew up, so that we can create our own culture for our own family, for our own marriage. It's important that we do that. Listen, some of that stuff was cute and funny, but at the time it wasn't. So look, these are my 10-minute tips. Yes, your childhood can have a great impact on your relationship.